because the massive trade rumors is starting to gain a serious attention across the NFL. And if it becomes reality, it could completely change the future of the American team. The Cowboys may not be finished building their roster for upcoming season, and in fact, according to recent reports, Dallas could be preparing for what would easily be their biggest move of the entire offseason, and the player that at the center of all speculation is none other than All-Pro pass rusher. And after mandatory minicamps wrapped up around the league, NFL analyst Christopher Knox of the Bleacher Reports identified the Cowboys as the #1 trade destination for Crosby if the Raiders decide to revisit trade discussions before training camp begins. And the Cowboys Nation is already debating whether Jerry Jones should make the call. And now you can imagine Dallas defense featuring one of the NFL most feared pass rushers. Imagine opposing quarterbacks trying to survive against relentless defensive front led by Maxx Crosby. That's exactly why this rumor is creating so much excitement. But there is a major catch. The price tag is enormous. According to reports, the Raiders would likely demand at least 2 first-round picks and the same package that was reportedly offered by the Baltimore Ravens early this year before their trade agreement collapsed. That's right. Baltimore was reportedly willing to send 2 future first-round selections to Las Vegas in exchange for the Crosby. However, after medical evaluation, the Ravens became uncomfortable with what they discovered and they decided to withdraw from the deal. The failed trade shocked the NFL, of course. On March 6, news broke that Crosby was heading to Baltimore Ravens. Just 4 days later, the entire agreement fell apart. The Raiders released a statement confirming that the Ravens had backed out of the trade agreement. And according to NFL insiders, the issue centered around the Crosby medical situation following off-season knee surgery. And reports indicate that Crosby underwent surgery of the repair of a meniscus injury shortly after the season ended, and while recovery from the procedure typically takes several months, and Baltimore reportedly had concerns after conducting its own medical review. As a result, the trade was cancelled. Since then, Crosby has remained with the Raiders, but that hasn't stopped speculations. Many analysts believe Las Vegas could still consider moving the star defender if another team is willing to meet their asking price. And that's where the Cowboys enter the conversation, and Dallas actually possesses an interesting amount of the draft capital moving forward. Thank you to previous trades. The Cowboys own an additional first-round pick in 2027. That extra pick gives Dallas flexibility that many contenders simply don't have. Still, giving up 2 first-round selection would be a difficult decision. That's why some analysts believe the Cowboys could attempt to create a different package. One proposed scenario would include a 2027 first-round pick, a 2027 third-round pick, and young pass rusher Denovan Ozeluwaku, yes? And such a package might allow Dallas to remain competitive in negotiation without completely sacrificing its future. Yes, of course, that's understandable. And the question is simple. Would the Raiders accept it? One no one knows, my friend. No one knows about that one. But that makes this rumor especially interesting in the current state of the Cowboys defense. Adara spent much of the off-season trying to rebuild a unit that struggled throughout of the 2026 season. The Cowboys finished near the bottom of the NFL defensively and ended the year with disappointing 7 wins, 9 losses, and 1 till record. That performance forced major changes. And a new coaching staff arrived, including new defensive coordinator Christian Parker, and a new defensive ideas were introduced in the Dallas Cowboys, and the front office began reshaping the roster after biggest additions came when Dallas acquired Rashan Gary from the Green Bay Packers. The Cowboys also invested heavily in draft, selecting promising edge rusher Malachi Lawrence in the first round. Oh my god. That moves improved the position, but many experts still believe Dallas lacks a true elite game-changing pass rusher capable of taking over games by himself. That's exactly why Maxx Crosby continues to generate interest. When healthy, Crosby is one of the NFL's most dominant defensive players. His motor is legendary. His effort never stops. His ability to pressure quarterbacks consistently makes him a nightmare for offense every single week. And adding a player like Crosby wouldn't simply improve the Cowboys' defense, it could transform it. Suddenly, Dallas would possess the type of the defensive star capable of the changing playoff games. And suddenly, opposing offensive coordinators would be forced to redesign the entire game plans. And suddenly, suddenly by now, you have to think about this one, my friend. The Cowboys would become one of the most dangerous defensive teams in the NFL. Of course, there is a risk. A medical concern cannot be ignored for Maxx Crosby. The draft capital required would be substantial, and Dallas would likely need to absorb a massive contract commitment. Remember, Crosby signed a 3-year contract extension worth for more than $106 million before 2026 season. That's huge financial investment, and Jerry Jones and the Cowboys front office would need to complete confidence in the Crosby half before making such moves. Still, championship window don't stay open forever. The Cowboys know that. Their fans know that. And after years of the playoff disappointments, many supporters would gladly sacrifice future draft picks if it means acquiring a proven superstar capable of helping Dallas compete for the Super Bowl right. So what happens next? Training camp is rapidly approaching. Trades rumors will continue to intensify. The Raiders remain publicly committed to Crosby, but NFL situations can change overnight, and all it takes is one phone call, one negotiation, one aggressive offer, and suddenly the entire league is talking about Blockbuster Trade. Could Jerry Jones shock the NFL? Could Maxx Crosby become a missing piece of the Dallas desperately needs? Or will the Cowboys decide the cost is simply too high? Only time will tell. But things is certain. This story every Cowboys fan should be watching very closely over the next few weeks. If opportunity presents itself, don't be surprised if Dallas makes a bold move that sends shockwaves across the NFL. And if that move involves Maxx Crosby, the Cowboys could instantly become the most talked about teams in football. Cowboys Nation. What the Cowboys could be sitting on one of the most exciting offensive weapon in the NFL, and his name is Jadon Blue. As training camp gets closer, Cowboys fans are focused on stars like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens and Javonte Williams. But there is another player who could quietly become one of the biggest difference makers on the entire roster. Today, we are going to break down why the Cowboys believe Jadon Blue can have a major role in 2026, how Dallas plans to use him, and why Tony Pollard could be the perfect blueprint to his success, and what this means for the future of the Cowboys offense. So now let's get started. And the biggest challenge facing the Cowboys offense entering 2026 is keeping Javonte Williams fresh throughout of the season. Javonte Williams was phenomenal in 2025, and after arriving in Dallas, he became the centerpiece of the rushing attack and helped stabilize the offense. And his production earned him a brand new 3-year contract that proved that the Cowboys made the right decision by investing in him. Of course, that's what you have to know. But there was a problem. The Cowboys relied on Javonte Williams almost too much. Yes, he touched the football 287 times during the season, and the highest workload of his NFL career. Early in the year, everything looked great. Javonte Williams averaged more than 80 rushing yards per game and was one of the most productive backs in football. However, as the season progressed, the workload started to take its toll. His yards per carry dropped, his explosiveness decreased, and his production wasn't quite the same during the final stretch of the season. This shouldn't surprise anyone because running back is one of the most physically demanding positions in football. Of course, that's what you have to know. And the most hits a player absorbs, the harder it becomes to maintain elite production over a full season. Cowboys understand this reality. That's exactly why Jadon Blue could become such an important piece of the offense, yes? Instead of asking Williams to handle nearly every meaningful snap, Dallas can create a complementary role for Jadon Blue. And if they do it correctly, the entire offense could become more dangerous. Many people immediately compare every young, explosive running back to Jahmyr Gibbs, but that comparison isn't realistic, of course. The Cowboys aren't expecting Jadon Blue to become an instant superstar for dominant touches from day one. Instead, there is another model that makes much more sense. Tony Pollard. Cowboys fans remember how effective Pollard was during his early years in Dallas. He wasn't asked to carry the offense. He wasn't receiving 25 touches every game. Instead, he was deployed strategically. The Cowboys used Pollard's speed, explosiveness, and receiving ability to attack defenses in specific situations. When defenses become focused on stopping Ezekiel Elliott, Pollard punished them with big plays. Oh my gosh. His role allowed him to stay fresh while maximizing his strength. And that same formula could work perfectly for Jadon Blue. Blue possesses elite speed. He has natural receiving skills, and he can create an explosive plays whenever he finds open space. Rather than forcing him into a traditional power back role, Dallas can use him creatively. Imagine Jadon Blue lining up beside Dak Prescott in shotgun formation. Imagine him catching passes in space against linebackers. And imagine him being used on screens wheel routes, jet emotions, and designed mismatches. Defensive coordinators would have nightmares preparing for that kind of versatility. And that's exactly what Brian Schottenheimer wants. The Cowboys offense already has plenty of the star power. Dak Prescott remains one of the league-best quarterbacks when healthy, and CeeDee Lamb continues to be one of the NFL's most dangerous receivers. George Pickens gives Dallas another explosive playmaker on the outside, and of course Jake Ferguson provides reliability at night ends. Now, imagine adding a dynamic weapon like Jadon Blue into that mix. Suddenly, defenses have far too many threats to account for. If they focus on the Lamb, Pickens can beat them deep. If focus on Pickens, Lamb dominates underneath. If they drop extra defenders into coverage, Javonte Williams can punish them on the grounds. And if they forget about Jadon Blue, he could turn a simple check down into 50-yard touchdowns. That's the type of the impact player Dallas hopes to become. Another reason for excitement is Jadon Blue fit in today's NFL. The modern game is all about speed and versatility. Teams are constantly searching for the players who can create mismatches. The most successful offenses finds the way to get their fastest athletes into space. Jadon Blue fits that philosophy perfectly. That's what we have to know. His acceleration is elite, and his ability to change a direction is impressive. And perhaps most importantly, he has the kind of the home run speed that can change a game instantly. One missed tackle, one blown assignment, one small opening, that's all it takes. Those are kinds of the players championship teams need. The Cowboys now, they cannot simply rely on the